Okay, so good evening everyone. Welcome to part 3 of my 3-part YouTube video on the nature of inquiry and research. This is actually just a continuation or a supplemental lesson now on the types of quantitative research that is found on your module 2. So the reason that I am having this pre-recorded video is because there are also some of you who were not able to attend my synchronous online class. So of course, class, I'll be talking about the types of quantitative research, which was not fully covered in my 2-part video on the nature of inquiry and research, which was uploaded last week. So for those who were not able to attend my online synchronous class earlier, not today, which is September 8, 2020. So that was last 4 to 5 p.m. No, just this afternoon. So you may watch a replay of this pre-recorded video. So let me now share my screen with you. So welcome again to video 3 or part 3 of my lecture on which is covered on your module 1. We will be talking about types of quantitative research which is under lesson 3 and 4 of your module 1. So under the types of quantitative research, so we are going to discuss two types, which is the experimental and the non-experimental research. So under experimental research, you have also different types of experimental research. And under non-experimental research, you also have different types of non-experimental research. So the reason why we are going to focus on quantitative research more than qualitative is because quantitative is much more easier to make than a qualitative research paper. Although a qualitative research paper class has lesser content, and or let's say a much more shorter content than compared to quantitative. But when it comes to collecting information or data, it's much more easier to collect data if you are um, focusing on quantitative research design. Why? Again, as what I have mentioned in video 1 and 2, which was uploaded on YouTube. So in quantitative, they are using numerical data, while in qualitative, it's more on observations, interviews, focus group discussions. And sometimes a qualitative research paper takes a lot of time, and also it's very tedious to make. So let's start first with the first type of quantitative research, which is experimental research. So there are two broad classifications of quantitative research. Experimental research adheres strictly to procedures of the scientific method. It involves manipulation of experimental and non-experimental variables and employment of a treatment or intervention. So usually, your independent and dependent variables in experimental research are manipulated through an experiment. So sometimes this type of research design is employed in medical research. So for those who would like to pursue a medicine course, especially in STEM, they are encouraged to make a experimental research. So why? Because in experimental research class, they are going to manipulate the independent variable to affect the dependent variable. And the result of the dependent variable is what you're going to determine or what you're going to record. So I'll give you an example of a manipulation of the independent variable that will affect the dependent variable. For example, the effect of an herbal treatment in reducing blood sugar among those diagnosed with diabetes is investigated. So for example, now we have group 1, that will be treated using herbal treatment. So group 1, which are a group of patients with diabetes, are treated using herbal, while group 2 is treated using standard care. So I know it's reversed, but let me just explain. It's much easier to have an illustration. Okay, so for example, group 1, For example, 10 patients with diabetes are treated using herbal, and group 2 are treated, no, these are also patients, no, with diabetes are treated using standard care. Take note, class, both groups must have at least the same profile. So there must be of the same age, no, same gender, same height, weight, no, so that it will not also um, affect the results of the experiment. No, so as much as possible, no, all of your respondents have similarities, and they must have the same type of diabetes, because there are different types of diabetes, class, no, and all of your participants in this experiment must have the same type of diabetes, because no, probably if you're going to have different kinds of types of diabetes involved in this experiment, no, tendency there will be no accuracy in your result. So at the end of the treatment, no, the blood sugar, which is the dependent variable, will be determined. So in the end of the study, no, the blood sugar of group 1 will be determined, and the blood sugar of group 2 will also be determined. So which is more effective when it comes to reducing blood sugar? Is it group 1 who has undergone herbal treatment, or group 2 who has undergone standard care for diabetes? So again, they both have the same type of diabetes, and both group of patients have the same height, age, and weight. So at the end, no, of the experiment, so it was certain that the reduction of the blood sugar is due to herbal treatment. Therefore, no, when compared after a few months, it was then proven na those groups, no, in group 1 who has undergone herbal treatment has um, um, their blood sugar is reduced, no, compared to those who have undergone standard care treatment. So that's an example of the manipulation of the independent and of course the result to the dependent variable. So of course, class, no, in here the independent variable is the type of treatment that you are giving to each patient. So for example, group 1, you are giving them a herbal treatment. Group 2, so you decided to give them standard care treatment. So you can manipulate who among these two groups can have herbal treatment or herbal treatment or standard care treatment. So all of this treatment kind of treatments are the independent variable, because they can be manipulated. At the same time, they can also affect, no, the dependent variable. The dependent variable, class, is the patient or the blood sugar level of the patients, because mo man na siya ang mo change, no, the blood sugar of the patients, no, amo man na siya imong um i-observe, no, if there are changes, no, once you expose them to different treatments. So am I understood? So anyway, no, if you still have problems understanding, no, we have more examples. So I'll give you another example of the manipulation of the independent variable that will affect the dependent variable. So let's have a second. Um, okay. So I have here an illustration. No, so please forgive my illustration. I'm not really good at drawing. So for example, I'm going to conduct an experiment on two hamsters. This scenario was already explained, no, on video 1 and 2 previously, no, which is on the types of variables. So just a refresher, I have two hamsters and I'm planning to conduct an experiment on the two hamsters. So for example, hamster A is given a diet of fruits and berries for an entire month. Hamster B is given a diet of artificial supplements for an entire month. After 1 month, they are required to um, navigate through a maze. So what is determined is how fast can both hamsters no navigate through the maze. So of course no ang pinakadali nga makagawas dira mo na imong i-determine. So after 1 month, no, imos lang i-expose sa maze, it was then determined that hamster A, who has undergone a diet of fruits and berries, was the first no, to overcome the maze, rather than hamster B, who has undergone a diet of um, artificial supplements, who took at least a minute no, before going out of the maze or overcome the maze. No, so in short, the food supplements and the berries that you have given to both hamsters are the independent variable because they can be manipulated. No, you have the choice kinsa sa two hamsters ang tagaan nimo og kinds of diet. At the same time, no, um, they can affect no the memory of the hamsters. So as long as the independent variable can affect the dependent variable, then mo na siya ang independent. No? So do not forget that, class. Once a certain object affects another, no, if it comes to growth, no, or for example, changes in behavior, then that is the independent variable. But if you are the receiving end, let's say you are the hamster, and then you have undergone change because you are exposed to certain situations or you were given a kind of diet, then you are the dependent variable. So the one who has changed is the dependent variable. The one who affects the dependent is the independent variable. So, am I understood? So, mana siya. So, anyway, no? It's easier to identify as well, no? I think no, there was also an activity. There are 3 scenarios in your module that I have given wherein you are going to identify no, which is the independent and the dependent variable. There was also 4 scenarios given online, no, which you are made to submit on September 11, which is you are going to identify which is the independent and dependent variable among the 4 scenarios. So please, no, make sure na you do exercises so that you may be able to easily identify which is which. Now let's now proceed to the types of experimental research. So there are different kinds of experimental research, class. You have the true experimental research, and you also have the quasi-experimental research. When we talk about true experimental research, class, that means sample size or the picking of the respondents or participants are classified randomly, or the sample use is randomized. What does it mean? No, it means that the researcher can choose freely, no, or can choose who among no the respondents is he going to take as participants in his experiment. So, for example, I will be needing patients with diabetes, but regardless, no, if you are living in San Carlos or not, as long as you are a patient with diabetes, then I will consider you as a participant of my experiment. So, Silby, you have, as the researcher, you have the choice no, to pick who among these people are going to be your participants in your experiment. No? So, you have the freedom to choose. That is randomized. But if you're talking about quasi-experimental, class, that means there is no randomization. And your group or the participants that you're going to use as to partake no in your experiment are intact or fixed. That means, for example, no, my experiment is all about the effects of math anxiety in the academic performance of the grade 12 students in CSR. So my respondents are the whole grade 12 students of CSR. No, I will not be getting respondents from Tanyon, from Julio, from CSTR, but only from CSR. That is intact or fixed already, no. And also, no, I will be using, for example, a sampling method. Like I'm going to assign a number and then pick out, no, a number using statistical methods, and then those who are chosen, no, when it comes to usahay man na magruleta man ta, no, there is actually a magpa-raffle kasi ano ka nang ibotanin mo tanang numbers, and then you're going to pick, no, who among here are going to be your participants in your experiment, no. But sometimes in an intact group, no, because we cannot take actually, like for example 200 respondents, so that would be too tedious na siya, no. Instead, we're going to get a sample size. So to get a sample size, you have to assign a number to each student, and then you have to make a draw, bunot-bunot, no. So in a draw, so that will also be done, no, using statistical method. So for example, no, when you compute for a sample size, and then you are only needed to get at least out of 200, so at least mukuha lang ka og 100 or 50% of the population or 50 respondents. So it doesn't mean nga if you're going to get 50 respondents, you can choose, no, whoever among the 200 will be the 50 respondents. No, you have to assign a number to all 200 respondents, and you have to make a draw. And then for you to identify, no, who among those numbers ang imuhang kwaon, no, you also have to compute it. So for example, if the result is 9, so every 9 number, you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So those person assigned in the ninth number is your first participant. Next, after 9, so 10, ano, you're going to count 1 again. No? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So ang ika-9 nga number, sunod is the second person who will be included in your participants. So you need to have a list, no, of names. So for example, a list of names from UMS, no, to STEM. And you're going to provide a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 until 200. And then you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The ninth person, that is the first participant in your experiment. Next set, you're going to count, no, from the following student after you have chosen the first person to participate in your experiment. You're going to choose another set of respondents. So you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 again. So every ninth person in the entire 200 respondents are your participants. So that's an example of a sampling method. No? It's tedious, it's very um, difficult, no, but it must be necessary in order to provide accurate data. Next, let's now proceed to non-experimental research. So non-experimental research does not use any treatment or intervention compared to experimental research class. Usually, in non-experimental research, you're going to just describe the phenomenon or describe the characteristics of that phenomenon or situation. So most probably, class, no, you're not going to conduct an experiment. You're not going to manipulate the independent to affect the dependent variable. Instead, class, are just going to describe, no? Describe lang ka. Sumuon na siya. Okay, so let's now proceed. So there are different types of non-experimental research class. They can be divided into two. First is non-experimental research according to purpose. Next is non-experimental research according to time dimension. So of course, class, no, under the purpose, you also have three types, and under time dimension, you have also three types of time dimension, time dimension and experimental research. So, of course, uh, the most common research design, no, for non-experimental research is of course the descriptive non-experimental research design. Why? Because it's one of the most easiest, at the same time most common, no. Majority of my students have done a research paper, and most of them have implemented or applied a um, descriptive quantitative design. So what is a descriptive quantitative design? This is under non-experimental research classified according to purpose. No, so according to purpose class, you have descriptive, predictive, and explanatory. First, ang pinaka-common is descriptive. So what is descriptive class? A descriptive research may be implemented if the answer is yes to the following question. First question, is the research primarily describing the phenomenon? If you are mostly describing the characteristics of, or let's say the behavior of the tobacco users, then that is a descriptive research, no? Or if you are documenting the characteristics of the phenomenon, you're not manipulating the independent and the dependent you're not manipulating the independent variable to affect the dependent variable, and you're just simply describing, then that is descriptive research. Let's now proceed to the other types of non-experimental research. So we did made mention of the um, descriptive research, now which is under the type of research according to purpose. Now let's proceed to the type of research according to purpose, which is predictive. So the second type of according to purpose ng non-experimental research class is predictive. Um, if you say yes to the following questions, which is first, no, where the researcher is trying to establish the causal relationship between the independent and dependent variables, and if the researchers are trying to predict or forecast the effect of the independent variable to the dependent variable, then your research is a predictive, no, quantitative, no, non-experimental research. Why? Because, no, for example, you're going to predict if the activities done in your math subject are going to, let's say, um, help your students succeed in college. So, marag imong i-forecast nga, are these activities going to help my students succeed in college? So, that itself is a predictive, no, type of research. Mo forecast kadaan, mo predict. You're going to predict the outcome, no, of the independent variable and the. Okay, so let's proceed. So my internet connection is not that good. No, I would like to apologize again. So, of course, now if you're going to forecast the effect of the independent variable to the dependent variable, like what I have mentioned earlier, no, you're going to predict if the activities that you have prepared will help your students succeed in college, then that is a predictive type of research. Next, let's now proceed to explanatory research. So what is explanatory class? So if you're going to develop your own or test your own theory and you're going to explain how and why it operates, then that is a explanatory research. No, so kanang wala pa siya na explore no by anyone before, no, and you're going to contribute to the body of knowledge, no, by developing your own theory, and of course, no, to explain how that theory works, then that is explanatory because you're simply explaining, no, the theory that you have made. So for example, you're going to prove a theory wherein um, if I'm going to group my students into let's say 5 groups, no, and then they're going to work for the rest of the semester, will that improve their academic performance in my subject? You're going to prove that theory. So that itself is explanatory. So which means it was not yet done by any researcher before, and you're going to contribute to the body of knowledge. No, so, yung ana na jud kay ka, let's say, um, naning na jud kay ka, no, if you're going to pursue an explanatory research, no, meaning you're very much enthusiastic, no, to contribute to the body of knowledge, which is good, no, because what we are doing now, no, we are learning how to make a research paper, and then soon if we're going to write our own research paper, we can contribute to the body of knowledge, and that can improve the quality of life, no. So um, we also have a contribution to society. Next, no, let's now proceed to another type of non-experimental research. So again, just a recap, descriptive, predictive, and explanatory are under the non-experimental research classified according to purpose. But this time, no, let's now proceed to the second classification, which is according to time dimension. So you also have 3 classifications of a non-experimental research class, and that is cross-sectional, retrospective, and longitudinal. So this is actually more onto the data gathering. No, so the time that you are going to spend, or let's say the time they mention, no, in getting your data or in gathering your data and comparing them. So we have first the cross-sectional research, meaning you're going to collect your data in a single point in time. That means, for example, no, if you're going to conduct a study and then you decided to collect data within the month of January, no, because your respondents are graduating students, then that is cross-sectional because you're only going to gather data at a single point in time. No, maybe within this week, within this month, no. So that is cross-sectional. In retrospective class, so the researcher looks backward in time. So of course, no, um, you're going to collect past data and compare it with present data. So most probably, no, an example would be you would like to compare what are the causes of diabetes, no, in the year 2000, and also what is the cause of diabetes, no, this year. And then you are going to compare class if, no, um, the causes of diabetes are still the same, no, after pila ka years na nanglabay, no, after how many years, no, since 2000 to 2020. So that is retrospective. Now you're comparing old data and present data. But just a reminder, class, ha, especially if you're going to um, read, no, and collect or review of related literature. So sometimes the information can be outdated, no, sometimes mag-upgrade si information and the past information will not be relevant to today's, no, generation. So what are we going to do about that? Now usually when we go to Google Scholar, no, we can also choose a specific date, no, for example from 2010 to 2020. So at least, no, we are presented with recent data. So later on I will discuss further, no, on how to gather review related literature. So usually, no, at least 5 years. So probably in the year 2015 until 2020, no, that will be the desirable date, no, where you will get your data. Anything that is published in 2015 to 2020 are relevant data. No, they are not outdated na nga data. Okay, next, longitudinal. So longitudinal, unlike retrospective class, so longitudinal is i-collect nimo ang data at present time, and then you are gonna come back after how many months, and then you're going to collect data again. A perfect example is I would like to know if my teaching strategies can improve the academic performance of my students. So what will I do? First, I will conduct a pretest to see if how much they have learned in the previous math subject. So for example, I'm teaching math AB, no, and then I'm going to conduct a pretest, no, just to see, no, if they have still um, knowledge left from their previous math subject. Then once I have collected their scores, no, their answers, and then once I determine na some of them did not get any good scores, no, from the pretest, then I'm going to implement my own teaching strategies or activities that which I think, no, will help improve their academic performance. So for example, after how many months, no, of applying that activities and teaching strategy, I will then conduct a post-test. In a post-test, which is a same set of tests sa Japon na siya class, I'm going to determine if there is an improvement, no, in my students' academic performance, no, based on the teaching strategies that I have implemented after the pre-test. So pre-test, application of teaching strategies. After that, I will evaluate if their academic performance has improved based on the teaching strategies that I have also implemented in the past few months. So right after I have collected, let's say, their scores on the post-test, So there I will compare the post-test results and the pre-test results to see if there is an improvement. In the pre-test, they got low scores because my teaching strategies were not yet implemented. But after the post-test, no, there is an improvement in their test scores because some of them even got perfect. That means my teaching strategies are effective, no, and it can also help improve the academic performance of the students. So if you're comparing present data to future data, that is longitudinal research. As you can see, no, just a recap, we have already um, divided or classified the different types of quantitative research. So you have under experimental, you have true experimental, and quasi-experimental, which is, okay, sorry, okay, which is true experimental is more on random assignments of participants, while quasi-experimental is more on no randomization. Next, non-experimental according to research purpose. You also have descriptive, predictive, and explanatory. So descriptive is, of course, if you're going to implement it into a research paper, so you're really describing what are the physical activities, or let's say what is the tobacco use habits of teenagers. So you're describing their habits, no, when they're using tobacco. That is descriptive. On predictive class, you're going to predict, no, what are the factors affecting college success. No, so you're going to predict, oh, these are the factors that will make my students successful in college. So something like that. You're going to predict it, even though your students are not yet in college. Or the relationship between types of activities used in math, classrooms, and students' academic achievement. You're going to predict if the activities that you're going to implement in your math subject can help improve academic achievement. Explanatory. So you're simply explaining your new theory that you have developed, which is if peers and study groups can help, no, in the learning and academic achievement. In non-experimental, according to time dimension, which we have classified according to cross-sectional, retrospective, and longitudinal, you are simply going to, for example, if you're going to implement this one as a research problem, so you're going to collect data on the graduating students' beliefs and experiences on their K to 12. Of course, you're going to collect it once that they are already in the grade 12. And of course, once that they're almost, no, at the finish line, no, or once they are almost done, no, with the second semester. Why? Because, of course, so you're gathering their beliefs and perceptions on their experience in the K to 12 from grade 11 to grade 12. For them to fully give you the information that you need, they have to make sure to gather the data once nga the semester is almost over, no, or they're going to have their practice na sa graduation. So that's the perfect time because they already have all of the perception and experiences that they have gathered, no, during their entire experience in the K to 12 education. Next is retrospective. So you're going to, for example, if you're going to apply it to research, you are going to compare, no, what are the causes of lung cancer, no, and disorders of smokers from different, no, year. So for example, ang possible causes sa lung cancer in the year 2020, no, i-compare nimo siya sa year 2001. So you need to compare if they have this still similar causes or ang causes na sa lung cancer kay nag-change na ba. No? So that is also one consideration. Now, longitudinal. So of course, no, um, a very common is you're going to conduct a pretest and then apply, no, whatever it is nga an independent variable baron imong i-manipulate, and then the result, which is mo conduct og um, post test, mo po na siya imong i-compare, no, present data and future data. Okay? So that ends now my discussion on the types of quantitative research. I do hope you have learned something from me this evening. No, again, if you feel nga you have not yet fully grasped, no, the entire discussion, you may watch a replay of this video. Also, a supplemental explanation is provided in your module 2. So, pwede ra mo pud mo ka-scan dira. So again, no, thank you so much for listening, and Goodbye.